top of the morning for sure, getting work done and just embracing the weather. And I say embracing because someone had asked a question about, how, they had visited Seattle a couple of years ago. This is prior to COVID. And they were like, it was amazing. And they were asking just generally, I can't remember the specifics because I don't have the email up now, but they were just saying in general, they loved Seattle. They thought it was amazing. They're now hearing that, Seattle's not doing so well. Is that true? They also were saying, that they think that when they were here, the weather was great. So they think the whole concept of it always rains in Seattle, they said that's definitely not true because when they were here, it was great weather. And so I'm going to pick that apart a little bit because there are some things, and I get why some people ask the questions about this area because there's so much misinformation, right? There's a lot of that all over. And so people who live here can give you a better understanding. This is not a real chain, by the way. It's just a shirt. But people can give you a better understanding as to what life really is like here. And it does ebb and flow. It changes. Be sure to join the Discord, which is going to be down in the description box below. We talk about a ton of different things, right? So let me first say life here in Washington is not always easy. It has its challenges just like any other place. I talk about the situations that we have here. We have the streets are getting more crowded as far as parking along the street. Like literally, there's so many, and people haul down this road. People are weaving in and out because there's cars parked on both sides of the street. And these streets were not designed for that, right? These roads were not designed for the amount of volume, and they were not designed for the amount of parking. You have some people who have 2 people in the house, but they have 3 or 4 cars. There's some people who have 6 cars, and there's only like 3 or 4 adults. It's just a huge waste. So Tacoma is still very much like that. It's not like Seattle where people really have to budget and focus on the number of vehicles that they have because parking is difficult and challenging. And then when you try to park downtown, it is a premium. So cars are typically a lot smaller up there. People have less of them than they do down here. Down here is a completely different world. And so with that, you do have your challenges of trying to change that, right? Over time, that will slowly change to where you don't have so many people with so many cars. And I never really understood that. We just now got a second car here, which we haven't had except for the start of our relationship. Noelle and I, we've done without a second vehicle just because. It's expensive, there's no point in it, all of that. But as this one started to get older, we were like, we need one just in case this one craps out. But it does have its own challenges, right? The weather, you mentioned, when you were here, it was nice and sunny and all of that. That's not always the case. It's not always the case that it rains either, right? You do have, and I've noticed since it started to rain a lot more now. We don't have our little tree rat situation. I don't know. It could be that they're out there and I don't know. But I haven't seen them since I've done a few different things. And so I've been putting bait out there, doing different things. But when the weather changes, everything starts to change. Like the behavior of nature, everything. There's even a video I did talking about the whole tree rat situation and the ground rats that we have. All right, so got these tree rats, or I don't know what they are, but they're under the shed. And so I got this Vaunt solar light spotlight, and what's cool about it is that, let's get that out of the way a little bit, is it's waterproof, ambient light, and solar powered. Now recently, if you can kind of look at the ground, it's been wet. This time of year, it just rains, and it's hardly, especially in Tacoma, it is just cloudy all day. You maybe will get a total of an hour at this time of year for the whole day because it's on and off. But still, the solar panel works. So I have this light on because when the girls actually come to put the chickens up, they want to have some sort of light. So let me show you. It's actually, even this is just with 1 hour of sun today. Okay, so as you can see, it's on, and so it helps light up out that direction. It gives you, it's kind of a wide burst, but it gives you probably about a 6 foot wide span. It is adjustable, so you can adjust it down there and swivel it. And it shines out, as you can see, pretty far. From here, you would be able to see what's going on a good 15 feet, no problem at all. It works well. And look at that. I mean, I'm blasting it with water and it works. I mean, I needed something like this anyway, because again, the kids freak out with the little rat that hangs out here by chickens, but I don't know, I think the rat's gone. This might have helped. But anyway, I'll leave a description box, or actually I'll leave a link down in the description box below where you can get this spotlight from Bont. So if you want that particular Vaunt light, you get 2 in a pack. I only showed the one because the other one's across the yard looking in the same direction. But if you want that, I will have it down in the description box below and you can actually pick that up. But even the behavior of animals are changing because now they're trying to gather all the food that they can so that they can chill out for the winter, because they can tell. But it doesn't always rain here, and it's not always sunny here. We actually had this past summer some of the hottest temperatures, days on end in history. When roads start to buckle, it gets pretty darn hot, right? So it's not always this, roses and sunshine. Right now, as we start to head towards fall, it's great. The weather is nice. It's kind of chilly, but it is kind of wet, damp, moldy, mildewy. I had someone on Discord say that they they live in Lacey. They noticed the smell of mildew, right? Because it's just so wet and damp here. It just stays that way. You look at the type of trees we have. It is what it is, right? The back of our yard's going to turn into a swamp. It's going to be kind of boggy. It's just wet and damp. That's just how it is. Now, because of our situation here, we have to have dehumidifiers. I have one going on back here. I have one in there. I'm going to add a few more to try to suck some of the moisture out of the air. It's good to have that during the summer and in the winter because of dampness. We have a lot of humidity in this area. I mean, we're surrounded by water. We have a lot of humidity. So it makes it hotter than it needs to be in the summertime. And so getting that humidity out of the air is helpful, right? Winter time is great. And when you have a gas furnace, which we do have, it helps because it helps dry up some of that moisture, but it still can be a challenge. So it's not always sunny here and it's not always rainy, but the myth is that it's always bad weather. And I've had people say, I just can't live with the cloudy days. I don't know if I can handle that. And so to be honest with you, around this time, so around the second week of September, sometimes a little earlier than that, is when you start having gray skies. You maybe will get, like I said in the clip, an hour of sunshine a day. It may be broken up 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there, that type of thing throughout the day. But that's when things start to change, and some people can't handle that. It's not for everybody, right? So don't get this thing that if you came here in June 3 years ago, that it's, nice and sunny here and all that. It just isn't, right? But it also doesn't rain all the time. Right now, I think it rained last night. It's cloudy, it's wet, damp outside. You don't need an umbrella. You know what I mean? Most people here don't have that. You know, you don't need stuff like that. It's just a misty type of rain. Sometimes you will have a good, decent rain. And there's some new people that were in Discord saying that this is their first Washington rain because you don't know what to expect. But it's really not that bad. It's not like back home where you have thunder and lightning and just a huge downpour. It's not typically like that at all. It's rare to have thunder, so much so that the kids are shocked when they do hear thunder. It's just, and the animals run because they're not used to it. When it comes to Seattle, Seattle has changed quite a bit. And this is mainly due to a lot of different things, but COVID has really put a huge hit on Seattle. They're not used to that. We're used to not having a lot of tourism down here in Tacoma. Seattle is not. So when all of that has happened, they had hundreds, literally hundreds of businesses go out of business downtown. So everything from bars to restaurants to clothing stores, some national chains, they've all went out of business down there. There are still obviously a ton of businesses down there. The city definitely is not dying. But it has changed. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of boarded up places, and they're just not accustomed to that. Here in Tacoma, you're accustomed to not seeing a lot of people walking around. You're accustomed to seeing empty storefronts here and there because they've been empty for decades. But up in Seattle, it's just not typically what you see. And so folks are, you know, a little concerned. The city has done a lot of different things recently to try to combat that and to fix it because their concern is image and perception. You know, the crime rate has actually increased quite a bit downtown. There's a lot of different issues going on downtown, a lot more homelessness. There's a lot more graffiti and vandalism and different things like that going on. So all of those things, as well as not having the daytime traffic that it normally has and the tourism traffic it normally has, you don't have as many eyeballs watching and seeing things. You're seeing a lot of things change and not for the better, right? In this time period. Now that may shift and change later on. I don't know. But Seattle was way overbuilt. I said this a long time ago when it came to the retail sector of that city. Way overbuilt. And not so much in terms of retail businesses and stores and shops and things like that. Not so much that. But the amount of restaurants were way overdone. And so that city has way too many. And so now when you take out all of the daytime traffic that comes in to work, not all, but when you take out some of the big heavy hitters, and a lot of those companies are saying, well, you know, you can still do the work from home thing, those restaurants can't survive because there's not enough people to keep it going. Then you throw in the fact that there's no tourists, or the amount of tourists have taken a hit. The problem, and I've said this before, and it goes with a lot of different businesses, Amazon all the way to Kenmore Air to some of the cruise companies that come in there, they don't operate the same. This region does not operate the same as it does in other parts of the country where they spread the wealth. Everything is concentrated like we're a third world country. It's all concentrated in one city. So when something happens, everything goes kaput because you put all your energy into one city. I mentioned before, Port-au-Prince, Haiti, the country of Haiti would do better if they spread the wealth out versus concentrating in one area, because as soon as something bad happens in Port-au-Prince, the whole country fails. Duh. I mean, one major storm and the whole country is just locked up because there is no true sense of having assets in different areas. It's all focused in one city, and it's not a smart thing. The whole carrying all your eggs in one basket, you're taking a big risk, and that's what happened in Seattle. You have all these businesses trying to go after the same dollar, and they're not going into other places like they should. You see what I'm saying? Like, they really don't do that. And if they do, they go to Bellevue. Well, Bellevue is starting to become another Seattle light. And same thing, if something bad happens to one of the two cities in this region, then kaput. They don't spread out the job market like they should. And they don't, because again, if there was an issue in terms of the floating bridge, let's say that there was a bad wreck or something, it's going to impact people going into Bellevue. There's other ways to get around and get to it, but things like this are a major problem. And so that is what you're seeing in Seattle, is that it is not bouncing back as fast as the city wants it to in leadership. And so they're concerned about that. They're worried that there is a major problem. And so they want to change perception, because people who are visiting back, they walk around and they see a lot of graffiti. They're seeing a lot of empty businesses. And so that does not bode well for a city like Seattle. Now, if you would have went back 20 years ago, Seattle would have been like, all right, whatever. Like, we can kind of work through, similar to Tacoma's take on it. Like, okay, just put our heads down. Let's just keep plugging away. Let's keep working, that type of thing. Seattle is not like it was 20 years ago, where it kind of had that vibe of, okay, not a big deal. They've been the golden child, not only of Washington State, but really, in a big sense, kind of the West Coast. And so you have this city that's kind of untouchable being pretty much touched. And so they're not, the leadership up there, businesses, some of the citizens, they're not really used to that in recent memory. A lot of these people who live up in Seattle haven't been there in the last 20 years. They don't know what it was like before. So they're not used to that. And the people that have been there before, they're not used to seeing the amount of graffiti and poverty and all of that, which is affecting every place along the West Coast and throughout the country. But they're not used to seeing the volume of it. And when you start taking away the daytime traffic and all the people walking around and the crowds of people, and you see a lot more homelessness and graffiti, and it stands out more because you don't have all those other people, it really does make people feel like, when will downtown bounce back? Will it ever? And I think that it will, absolutely. I think that the scars are still going to be there. I think you have to have the right type of leadership that's going to step in place and that's really active. You have some people, who are very proactive, not reactive. And we often have leadership that's very reactive. They're not proactive. When you have a proactive government in terms of city leadership, they plan for everything. And they make sure that there's always something new coming to the forefront. What else can we do? What can we learn from other places? And you even have the local newspaper talking about, Seattle should take tips from other cities of what they've done. Even some of these small, tiny towns of 40,000 people. And this is something that I've talked about with the city of Tacoma, that there are things you can do proactively to help downtown, but you have to have the right people with the gumption to want to do it. And so if you don't have that, you end up in a situation where things start to kind of look kind of dreary. And so sometimes events like COVID, sometimes natural disasters or whatever, can create an environment where people are like, dang, I didn't realize it could get that bad. It can. Seattle can fail. Detroit back in the day was the city. You understand what I'm saying? Like that was people said Chicago, what? Like, nah. Detroit. That was the manufacturing capital of the world. I mean, vehicles were made there, a lot of other things. It was mostly known for automobiles, but it was the capital of automobile manufacturing and everything. Detroit was not that big of a city in terms of sprawled out, right? Back in the olden days, Detroit had it was a smaller city with a huge population, very dense. And over time, and also due to a lot of other things, it expanded out. And they're like, not a problem. This city's going to keep growing. It's going to be the biggest city in the Midwest. You look at it today, it's smaller than Indianapolis in terms of population. Indianapolis keeps growing. And Detroit is trying to resurge, because Detroit did fail. It did fail. And so that should be enough for and Seattle is not at the size of what Detroit was. You get what I'm saying? It's not at that size. So it can indeed fail. I'm not saying that it is, but it can. And when you have, again, look at Detroit as an example. All of their auto manufacturing was right there in Detroit back in the day. Now they started to put it out in other places in the area. But when you have other companies that can go into different parts of the country and invest and do things, they can blunt whatever you're doing because the cost of labor is cheaper. If you look at Seattle and Bellevue, where Amazon has put the bulk of their workforce in Washington State, they're some of the two most expensive cities in the entire state. You see what I'm saying? So you're paying your workers a handful in order for them to work for you, but they don't invest in other places. So they put their warehouses everywhere. But when it comes to their executive team, it's just huddled in one area. This is very similar to what Detroit did, or what auto manufacturers did. And all it takes is the right perfect storm, and then boom. It could be that the company doesn't like the way the city is going. It could be a lot of different things. Okay, have to get the kids up. Well, they're up, but the other one, all five of them, or all five. Oh, God, that'd be horrible. All three of them, sometimes it feels like I have five. All three of them are going to school now. And so Zeta is adjusting to school. And she was excited about it. And she does well. She does really, really good. She can actually read and everything. It's crazy. But she likes kindergarten. But the thing is that she's still used to just doing her own thing, getting up whenevs. And so now she has to get up at a certain time and all of that. Our kids are going through the online system again this time. I work from home, so it makes it a lot easier. It doesn't make my job easier because I have to constantly be distracted. There's always some sort of computer issue, always. There's always the technology side of things in terms of schools and their assignment. You know, here's the thing. I know I'm talking about Seattle and all that. And then I jump onto this, but it reminds me of something. The online school stuff is way too complicated. Not the work, but just trying to get to the assignments that the kids have to do is way too complicated. It's not done in a very logical, methodical way. Noelle and I have talked about this. Maybe it's just here in Washington. I don't know. But the way that they've done it is so backwards. I don't understand it, right? I don't get why it's so complicated as to the way that they do it. It's, you got to go here and seek this and go there. And it's like, if I can't understand it, I have a college degree and I can't understand it. Noelle has her master's degree and she can't. I have 2 degrees. Noelle has a master's and she can't hardly understand it. And you have to take time. What makes you think that kids can understand where to go and how to do it? That's the biggest problem. It's not so much that the schooling is hard. It's the fact that it's not laid out well. Again, I always believe that you have to have the right people at the right place at the right time. And I don't know who that is. Unfortunately, we stick people into positions that they shouldn't be in. And so that, to me, is what's going on. You just have this chaotic situation where it just makes things more harder than what it needs to be. And so then kids get frustrated, and they have a right to be. They get frustrated because it's just put together all backwards. But anyway, I get off my soapbox. But yeah, Seattle can technically fail. It has happened before, not just with Detroit. There's been other cities where this has happened, to where you have a situation where a city and leadership and all of that did not do the right things and did not think that, anything bad could happen. And then boom, things went downhill. I don't know if that's going to be the case with Seattle. I think that they're a little concerned, obviously, up there. I think that places like Tacoma should learn because, see, we're also having our own surge. So while, Seattle is sitting here bouncing around in the water, Tacoma is surging. All you hear every other day is another apartment project that is proposed. It used to be where you'd hear about it maybe once every few weeks. Excuse me. Now it's like almost once every other day. All you hear about is a new mid-rise going up. And so it's crazy because Albuquerque, I sometimes look at their newspaper. And Albuquerque, which is a city of about 500 and something thousand people, double the size of Tacoma. They are just now getting there was news of a new mid-rise being developed in downtown Albuquerque, which is about 7 stories tall. And that's a big deal for Albuquerque. They're talking about how, we're getting a whole new, this mixed-use project coming in, and it's going to be great, and blah, 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 blah. And that made the news for them. And what's crazy is that we are a much smaller city. And if you just look at the Dome District alone, we have 5 projects that are about the same size of that one project in Albuquerque. So we are on a tear here. The same thing that's going on in Seattle as far as it's sputtering along can definitely happen to Tacoma. Much easier. Because we don't have the insulation that they have. We don't have the big, heavy juggernauts. We don't have the retail base. We are really there's not a lot of room for error. Seattle made that mistake because it's very narrow in terms of its job fields. It's very tech heavy. Down here, we're kind of all over the place. We have a lot of different things. So that's great. But we don't have a lot of employment base down here to help blunt any sort of potential issue. So that is something that we should definitely focus on and take cues from Seattle, right? Those are things that we should definitely pay attention to. Now, will we do that? I don't know. Again, we have to have the right leadership in place to make sure that we are always above the curve. Now, speaking of Albuquerque, there was a mayor there, and I'm not going to mention that person's name, but there was a mayor there that I didn't really care too much for. They were okay. But they came up with a signature project that would have actually done a lot of great things for the city of Albuquerque. And the next mayor that came in line didn't even do it. 2 different political parties. You had one person that was in one party, and then you had another one that was in a different party. And because of politics, they didn't do it. And they thought it was silly. There's no point in this. Even though it would have been a good thing for Albuquerque. It would have been a great thing. And so that's what I'm talking about. That type of thing, because you had a Republican before that proposed something that was actually a pretty good idea. It was a pretty good idea. They would have changed the economy in downtown Albuquerque quite a bit. You would have had more projects possibly coming because of it. But a Democrat came in, and this is not to play politics one way or the other. I don't care. But because you have 2 different parties, the Democrat decided not to go for it because, it was his idea. And this would have been a great idea for the people. That is the problem. That's one of the big issues that I see, is that things are not done for the betterment of the community. It's done for the betterment of one's career. If they feel like their career can benefit from it, then they'll do it. And so you see a lot of that, unfortunately. And that is why we have situations that we have when people use their own biases, when they use their own ambitions versus what's good for the betterment of everybody. That's why you have what you have in different places, like from Detroit to Seattle to other places. When things start to go kind of downhill, it's mainly not because of anything from the outside, and it's not due to the citizens. A lot of times it's due to poor leadership. So, to answer your question in terms of Seattle, it has changed. It's not as bad as what some people make you want to believe, that, oh my gosh, it's horrible everywhere. It's just going downhill and it's just bad. It's not like that. But has it definitely changed in the last couple of years? Absolutely. It's changed tremendously since I've lived there. But it's not to the point of where, it's never going to recover. As long as the city does what it needs to do, and it does it with the commitment of helping the people, it'll be all right. But anyhow, be sure to like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Tell me what your thoughts are in terms of the direction of Tacoma and the direction of Seattle. Be sure to join the Discord down in the description box below. Make sure that you click onto the Vaunt if you want it. Those lights are pretty good. They don't put out a whole lot, but they're great in terms of focusing their energy on one area. And it's great because the kids can see the little rat if it's out there. But anyhow, until next time, I will see you. Take care.